Well, Broncos Country, it is time to get real about this Denver Broncos team after a gut-wrenching loss yesterday against the Kansas City Chiefs. Hard to be optimistic about a loss like that, but there's plenty of reasons to be. We'll talk about it. We'll break down what it means for this team, what expectations should be moving forward, and how to move on. So let's get into it. If it's your first time, guys, on the channel, I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you. Consider hitting that subscribe button. We talk all things Broncos here. We also talk about some Nuggets and some Avs, especially as we get closer to the playoffs for them. And so if you're a fan of any of those teams or all three, I think you're going to love the channel. Smash that subscribe. It'll be super helpful. All right, Broncos Country. Well, we cried about it yesterday. It was tough. It was brutal. It was even brutal this morning waking up. I get it. It's a tough way to lose against the Chiefs, man, when it's a blocked field goal like that, when so many positives happen, and when you really felt like they were going to have a legitimate chance to win that game, come out of Kansas City with a win, and give the Chiefs their first loss. Well, it didn't happen. There's a lot of things, guys, when you're reflecting and you're looking back on this team and you're trying to keep things into perspective that are extremely positive. And I think that not only should you feel optimistic about this team for this season in a way, but certainly for the future, right? So reason number one, we get into it, is, guys, the Denver Broncos have found their franchise quarterback. No question about it. No ifs, ands, or buts. Bo Nix is the real deal. He is ready to carry this franchise on his back for the next decade plus. I've never been more optimistic about that. I've never been so sure about it. He's got everything from a trait standpoint that you would ask for when it comes to building a team around a franchise quarterback. He's got he's got playmaking ability. He's got the intensity and the mindset, not just from a smart standpoint, but from a competitive standpoint. And he's somebody that you just see continuously improving. He's got all the skills. He's got the arm strength. He's got the accuracy. Sure, there's going to be things to clean up, but, man, all the traits are there. And I think he's the right persona to be able to lead this team. Not just because he's a great fit, I think, for what Sean Payton wants to do eventually, but I think he's a great fit for really any offensive coordinator that wants to come in here. Now, the biggest thing, the most important thing that we can do for him in his development, and this is something that's going to be after the season, is get him some guys around him that can make plays so that they can be more consistent overall. But if you look at a lot of the downfalls or a lot of the reasons why, some of these drives get stalled, or some of these, the offense is not able to consistently score points, 90% of the time it's from players or because of things that are not really related to Bo Nix himself and what it is that he's doing. He doesn't turn the ball over. He doesn't typically take really bad sacks. Had a couple yesterday, but generally speaking, he doesn't take a lot of bad sacks. He was rarely putting this offense and this team in bad positions. And what I had seen in that last drive specifically that took all the time off the clock, that got us down into field goal range to be able to kick that field goal, he was nails in a loud environment against a really good defense. He was making the right checks. Communication was good. He bought himself some time when he needed to and made a play to Cortland Sutton. He checked into runs when he needed to. He checked out of them when it was the right thing to do. He's just really catching his stride. And that's the big takeaway that we should all take away from yesterday's game, is that we've got our franchise quarterback, and that is not only just a good sign for this season, but certainly for the future, right? Also, Vegas and a lot of the experts, they projected the Broncos 5.5 wins for the year, for the entire 17-game season, and we are 5-5 through 10. Easily could be 6-4, but I think 5-5 is, really where I believe that this team has been fitting. We have 3 very winnable games coming up, and we could be 8-5 going into the bye week. But even if we win one of the next 3 and we go into the bye week at 6-8, we've technically overproduced, right? I guess it would be 6-7. We have already overproduced based off of what the experts say. So we're ahead of schedule, greatly ahead of schedule, and that's some things that we should love. Additionally, we've got a defense that not only is very, very good, but I think they're going to be very good for a long time. All the core players, a lot of the guys that are making plays are under contract for a while. And same with this offensive line as well. So when you talk about a lot of the building blocks and a lot of things that take some time to build, we already have that as a franchise. And I think that that's a very big positive. Being able to find playmakers at the running back position, at the tight end position, and at the wide receiver position, really two of those three mainly, is something that can be found and flipped in an instant, really in one offseason. It becomes a very long building block when you're trying to find, dominant defensive line players because, you don't really find them available in free agency. And when you draft them, it takes them a couple of years to develop into what it is that you want. Well, we don't really need to do a lot of that. You always want to continue building, but you're not in a desperate mode. You're pretty set with where you are on the defensive line, and same with the offensive line as well. So the future's looking bright, Broncos country, and there's a lot of good things that we can take from it. We're going to see a lot more Audric Estime, whether you like that or not. It's a good thing for this team. If he can bring more of a spark to the offense and to the run game than what Javonte Williams did, I'd say that's a win. I also think that Devon Vele has finally taken over the little Jordan Humphrey role. And you saw good things happen when that happens as well. And I expect for Devon Vele to be a very important piece to this offense this year, but also for the years ahead. I think he's got a lot of Tim Patrick in him. I like what I see. He's just solid. Whenever the ball's thrown to him, he makes plays. I'd like to see more of that. And another positive thing is the way in which they used Marvin Mims in yesterday's game was a breath of fresh air. I think you can build a lot on that, and he's very well suited to be placed in that role where he's coming out of the backfield. I've been calling for that for a while for him to be used in more of a Deebo Samuel type of role, right? By no means am I saying he's Deebo, but that's going to be a good role for him, and I like what he can bring from that standpoint as well. And Troy Franklin, I think even what he's done so far this year has kind of exceeded a lot of expectations based off of what it is that we saw for, in preseason and what we thought he would become this year. So he's already ahead of schedule too. Keep in mind, guys, he's a young player, man. He's a kid. I think he's not even 21 yet, or he might have just recently turned 21. So he's somebody that is very young, very, very young, and he's got a lot of potential too. We want to see more of those. We want to continue with the building out. There's no doubt about that. But a lot of reason, guys, to be optimistic. This isn't one of those videos where I come in and try to make everything seem rosy. I'm still pissed. Yesterday's game was brutal. It sucked. But it's all about keeping things in perspective. It always has been with the season, and it's tough to continue and have that mindset. Like in games, you feel like, man, we should have won, or you lose in heartbreaking fashion. It sucks. But let's look ahead. We got a lot of winnable games, and we got a lot of football left. And I think another great thing is that, you're not going to see this. You're never going to hear players talk about moral victories. You're not going to ever see the kind of optimism you're feeling from me, from players, and from coaches. But I can assure you guys that locker room is feeling very similarly to how I am right now. They're just never going to publicly say it. They're gonna set expectations at a certain level. But man, oh man, is this team have to be feeling like, we're heading in the right direction. There are good things coming for us down the pipeline. Got the Falcons coming up at home. We go to the Raiders, and we are playing the Browns. Those are the next 3 games before we ultimately have the bye. No doubt about it. The absolute worst that we should do in that 3-game stretch is 2-1. But I'm looking for this team to really rebound, to show some grit, to be able to get a win against a good Falcons team at home, and then be able to get wins in the following 2 weeks. And that'll put us right on track, and it'll make this season, it'll help us really forget about this brutally tough loss that we had against the Chiefs. But more importantly than anything, more important than making the playoffs, more important than anything else, I can assure you guys, is the Broncos have already succeeded in finding their franchise quarterback, and I cannot wait to see what he does for the remaining 7 games of the 2024 football season. Let me know what you guys think below. How you feeling the day after? We're going to do a lot more breakdowns. We're going to talk about a lot more specific things in the coming days. And then we'll look ahead also to the Falcons and talk about how we can get a win, how I feel like we match up super well against them and why. And we'll go from there. All right, Broncos country. Stay positive. Spend time with those you love. Go Broncos as always. And until the next time, peace out.